The first laugh came from the end of the boardroom table. It wasn't a warm laugh. It was the kind that made people straighten their ties and pretend they didn't hear it, even though they did. Nia stood beside her cleaning cart with a folded microfiber cloth in her hand, staring at a fresh coffee spill that hadn't been there 5 minutes ago. The boardroom lights were too bright, the glass walls too clean, and the air smelled like polished wood and expensive cologne. Across the room, Graham Voss, Meridian Crown's deal director, tilted his head back like he owned the ceiling. He pointed at Nia with a pen, not even looking embarrassed. "Can someone get the maid out of here?" he said, loud enough for everyone. "This is a billion-dollar room, not a broom closet." A few people laughed, not because it was funny, because laughter was safer than silence. Nia didn't flinch. She didn't snap back. She didn't make a scene. She simply lowered her eyes to the spill, wiped it in one smooth motion, and kept moving. But as she stepped closer to the long table, she heard something else. A voice, low and quick, from a man in a navy suit who wasn't supposed to be in this meeting. "We signed today," the man murmured. "No delays. No extra review." Graham answered without turning his head. "Relax. The compliance report is handled." The navy suit man's voice sharpened. "Handled how?" Graham smiled, and his voice dropped into the kind of calm that didn't belong to honest people. "The same way everything gets handled," he said, quietly. Nia's cloth paused for just half a second. Not enough for anyone to notice, but enough for her to hear the sentence that would cancel the contract minutes later. Because the truth about Nia wasn't what Graham thought. And in a room where everyone believed power belonged to the loudest voice, the quietest person had just become the most dangerous. 2 hours earlier, Nia had been standing in the staff entrance, checking her badge with hands that didn't shake. The security gate beeped once, and the guard barely looked up. She was invisible, the way cleaners often were. The building was designed to notice executives, not the people who kept the floors shining. Her badge read Facilities, and Hart. The guard nodded. "Morning." "Morning," Nia replied softly. She pushed her cart through the corridor, wheels rolling over tile that reflected the ceiling lights like still water. Every sound in the tower felt controlled. Elevator chimes, soft footsteps, the distant whir of air conditioning. Even the silence felt expensive. Nia kept her shoulders relaxed and her pace steady. She had practiced that. Invisibility wasn't just a social thing. It was a skill. Today, she needed that skill more than ever. Because today wasn't just another shift. Today was signing day. Meridian Crown was about to sign a partnership deal with a fast-rising logistics company called Northbridge Systems. A deal that would put hundreds of millions into a new expansion and make a lot of people very rich. Everyone in the building was excited. Everyone except the people who knew what was really inside the deal. Nia's phone buzzed in her pocket. She didn't take it out. She didn't have to. She already knew the message that would be on the screen. "Stay calm. Don't get spotted. We need confirmation." That was the rule. Nia had her own reasons for being cautious. 6 months ago, she had been someone else. Not a cleaner. Not the maid. She had been a senior investigator for an independent corporate risk firm. The kind of firm that got hired when companies suspected fraud but didn't want it to leak. Nia was good at her job because she didn't chase drama. She didn't fall for charm. She didn't get distracted by fancy titles. She followed trails, numbers, emails, meeting logs, call records. And when Meridian Crown reached out through a private channel and asked for help, Nia thought it would be another normal case. Until she opened the file. Northbridge Systems. A company that looked perfect on paper. A company that promised clean growth, strong revenue, and a unique market advantage. But something was off. Invoices that repeated too neatly. Vendor names that changed by one letter. Delivery records that didn't match shipping scans. A pattern that looked like someone had copied reality and hoped nobody noticed. Nia had written a preliminary report in one night. Possible fabricated revenue. Possible shell vendors. Possible kickback network. She expected Meridian Crown to pause the deal and investigate. Instead, the next day, she got a warning. A plain email. No signature. No greeting. Stop asking questions. Nia stared at the screen for a long time that night, hearing her own heartbeat like it was tapping on glass. Threats weren't normal in her line of work, but they happened when money got scared. She reported it to her supervisor. Her supervisor reported it to legal. Legal said they would monitor the situation. Then, 3 days later, someone tried to get into Nia's apartment. The lock was scratched. The door frame had a fresh mark. Nothing stolen, nothing broken, just a message. We know where you live. That was when Nia understood the kind of people she was dealing with. Not petty liars. Not careless thieves. Professionals. And professionals didn't panic unless they had something big to hide. So Nia agreed to do something she normally hated. She went undercover. Not with a fake mustache or an accent. With a uniform. A company wouldn't let an investigator roam freely. But they would ignore a cleaner. So Nia took a temporary facilities contract through a staffing agency. Got a badge. Learned the routines. Memorized the floor plan. And practiced being invisible. Her mission was simple. Get inside the building. Get close enough to the signing process to confirm 2 things. Who was pushing the deal through. And what they were trying to bury. She rolled her cart toward the executive wing. Passing framed photos of company awards and smiling executives shaking hands. The faces were polished and confident. Nia knew a secret about polished confidence. Sometimes it was real. Often it was a mask. When she reached the boardroom corridor, the receptionist looked up. "You're early. I like to finish before everyone comes," Nia said. The receptionist nodded without interest. "Just don't touch anything on the table. They're very sensitive today." Nia gave a small smile. Of course. She entered the boardroom and breathed in the smell of lemon cleaner and varnished wood. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed the city waking up in a pale haze. Cars moved like quiet lines below. From up here, the world looked calm. Nia began wiping surfaces in steady circles, careful not to move papers. On the table were thick contract folders with gold embossing. Each folder had 2 names on it. Meridian Crown Group. Northbridge Systems. Beside the folders were pens arranged with too much precision, like someone believed neatness could prevent disaster. Nia's eyes scanned the room, without moving her head too much. She noticed a small camera above the presentation screen, angled toward the table. She noticed an access panel slightly open near the wall outlet. And she noticed a second camera, new, smaller, tucked near the ceiling corner. That one hadn't been in the building's standard layout. Someone had added it. Someone wanted extra eyes. A voice behind her startled her. "Hey!" Nia turned slowly. A younger man in a suit stood at the doorway, holding a laptop. His hair was messy like he had slept in the car. He looked nervous. "You're the cleaner?" he asked. "Yes," Nia said. He hesitated. "Just be careful today." Nia studied him for a second. "Why?" He glanced behind him as if afraid someone would hear. "I don't know. It's just the energy. Something feels wrong." Nia's face stayed calm. Inside, her mind sharpened. "What's your name?" she asked. "Ethan," he said quickly. "I'm in finance." Nia nodded. "You should trust that feeling." Ethan swallowed. "If I say something, I lose my job." Nia kept her voice soft. "And if you don't?" Ethan's eyes flicked to the contract folders. "I don't know." Then he walked away like he hadn't spoken. Nia watched him go, feeling the first open loop tighten in her chest. Not everyone in this building was comfortable with what was happening. That meant the pressure wasn't just external. It was internal too. By mid-morning, the boardroom filled with people. Executives in tailored suits. Lawyers with neat folders. Consultants with tablets. A few visitors from Northbridge, smiling too much. Then Graham Voss arrived like the room belonged to him. He was tall, polished, and loud in a way that made others shrink slightly. His watch gleamed under the lights. His handshake was firm. His smile was practiced. Graham noticed Nia immediately, not as a person, but as something that didn't match the decor. He looked at her cart with annoyance, then looked around as if searching for someone to blame. Nia kept wiping the table edge quietly. Graham leaned toward the head counsel, not whispering enough. "Why is she still here?" he asked. The counsel murmured. "Facilities always does last minute." Graham cut him off with a laugh. "It's distracting." Then he raised his voice, smiling like he was being charming. "That's enough now," he said. "Thanks, sweetheart. You can go." Nia straightened slowly. "The spill near the screen needs." Graham waved a hand. "Someone else can do it." He turned to the room like Nia had ceased to exist. Nia lowered her gaze, nodded politely, and began to roll her cart toward the door. She moved slowly on purpose, because she wanted to hear. And she did. As she passed behind Graham's chair, she heard the Navy suit man again. "We're exposed," the man murmured. "The due diligence team asked for vendor verification." Graham answered, smiling at the CEO across the table. "Vendor verification is theater," he murmured out of the side of his mouth. "We're past that stage." The man's voice tightened. "If the auditors—" Graham's tone sharpened, still low. "The auditors are handled." Nia paused at the doorway with her back to them, pretending to adjust her cart handle. The Navy suit man breathed. "How?" Graham's answer was a soft, ugly thing. "The report gets signed. The last email disappears. And the only person asking questions gets blamed." Nia felt that sentence settle into her bones. Only person asking questions. Blamed. That wasn't just talk. That was a plan. She rolled her cart out of the boardroom and into the service corridor, her face calm and her steps steady. But inside, her mind was already moving. She slipped her phone out near a utility closet and sent one message to a secure number. He said auditors handled. He said blame the questioner. I heard it clearly. The reply came almost instantly. "Get proof. Names. Time. Location." Nia's throat tightened. Proof was always the hardest part. Not because it was impossible. Because people like Graham didn't panic unless they were ready to destroy evidence. Nia had to move fast. She returned to the service corridor near the boardroom and watched through the small glass panel in the door. Inside, the meeting began. A large screen displayed a slideshow, projected growth, market expansion, smiling photos of warehouses and shipping containers. People nodded as if numbers on a slide could feed their conscience. Nia listened for the moment she needed. Then she saw it. Ethan, the finance guy, stepped into the room with his laptop. He sat near the corner, shoulders tense. Graham pointed toward the screen. "Ethan will confirm the final figures," he announced. Ethan swallowed and looked down at his laptop. Nia couldn't hear everything through the glass, but she saw Ethan's hand hesitate over the keyboard. Graham leaned closer to him, smiling, and said something that made Ethan's shoulders stiffen. A silent warning. Nia's heart beat harder. She needed access to the room's audio. She glanced at the wall. There was an IT outlet panel below the second camera. The panel had been left slightly loose earlier. Nia moved quietly, knelt, and opened it just enough to see inside. A small black device was plugged into the network line. Not standard. A tap. Someone was recording. Or monitoring. Nia's skin went cold. She snapped a photo quickly, then closed the panel. Now she had something concrete. But she needed more. She needed the reason for the fear. The reason for the rush. And she needed it before the contract got signed. Nia rolled her cart toward the executive break room. She knew deals were often finalized during casual moments, coffee breaks, hallway whispers, quiet corners. She parked near the snack counter and began wiping down a surface that was already spotless. Two men entered. One was Graham. The other was Victor Laird, Northbridge's CEO, a man with a sharp chin and a smile that felt like a promise you couldn't cash. They didn't notice Nia. Graham poured coffee. Once the signs were golden. Victor chuckled. And the compliance noise? Graham smirked. Muted. Victor's voice lowered. Your internal whistleblowers? Graham's eyes flicked toward the hall. One is shaky. One is handled. And the outside one. Victor raised an eyebrow. Outside. Graham's smile turned cruel. A contractor snooping around. She'll be painted as unstable. It won't stick. Nia's grip tightened on her cloth. She kept her head down. Victor nodded slowly. Good. Because once the funds move, nobody can reverse it without looking like they're attacking jobs. Graham laughed softly. Exactly. We'll hide it behind growth. People love that word. Victor leaned closer, voice almost a whisper. And the shell vendors? Graham's eyes gleamed. Already invoicing. Nia felt her mouth go dry. There it was. Shell vendors. Fabricated revenue. Not just suspicion now. Confirmation. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. A reminder alarm she had set earlier. Restock supplies. She turned it off quickly, praying it hadn't been loud. Graham's eyes flicked toward her. For the first time, he truly looked at her. Nia kept her face blank, shoulders relaxed, like a woman who had nothing but detergent and patience. Graham watched her for a beat too long. Then he smiled, too friendly. Hey, he said. You're still here. Nia nodded. Just cleaning. Graham tilted his head. What's your name? Nia answered easily. Nia. Graham's smile stayed. Nia. Right. He turned back to Victor, but Nia saw it. The quick calculation in his eyes. He was suddenly aware that she existed, and that meant her time was running out. Nia pushed her cart out of the break room and headed straight for the stairwell, moving faster now. She needed to get a message out. She needed to trigger the only thing that could stop a signed contract in a room full of people who wanted it signed. A public interruption. An undeniable interruption. She called the secure number. A voice answered immediately. Go. Nia kept her voice quiet. Graham Voss confirmed shell vendors. Northbridge CEO confirmed funds move immediately. They're about to sign. Do you have proof? I have a photo of a network tap in the boardroom, and I can get audio if. Don't risk your safety. The voice cut in. We can stop the signing if we have enough to justify emergency hold. Nia's heart thumped. How? There was a pause then. We need Ethan. Nia swallowed. The finance guy. Yes. He's inside the room. He knows the numbers. Nia closed her eyes briefly. Ethan had looked like someone who wanted to do the right thing, but was scared. And scared people didn't move unless someone gave them a path. Nia opened her eyes. I'll reach him, she said. She ended the call and took a breath that felt too thin. Then she walked back toward the boardroom, pushing her cart like a shield. The signing was minutes away. Through the glass, she saw the lawyers aligning documents. She saw Victor smiling and checking his watch. She saw Graham standing tall, enjoying the moment like it was applause. Nia's chest tightened. This was the moment when the wrong people thought they were untouchable. She stepped into the boardroom quietly, head lowered, and moved toward the far side where Ethan sat. Graham noticed her immediately. His face tightened. He raised his voice, sharp and annoyed. Seriously? I said she can go. The room paused. Some people turned. Nia stopped beside Ethan's chair and leaned slightly toward him, as if wiping the side of the table. Her voice was barely a breath. Ethan, she whispered, if they sign, it becomes your signature too. Ethan's eyes widened. He didn't look at her directly. What are you doing? Nia kept wiping. You already know it's wrong. Ethan swallowed, eyes fixed on his laptop. I can't. Nia's voice stayed calm. You can. You're just scared. Ethan's jaw clenched. They'll destroy me. Nia's cloth moved in slow circles. They're going to destroy someone anyway. If you stay silent, it will be you later. Or someone else who doesn't deserve it. Ethan's breathing quickened. Graham stepped closer, smile tight. He spoke loudly for everyone. Hey, Maid. He tapped the table with his pen. We're in the middle of something. Go. The word Maid landed in the room like a slap. A few people shifted uncomfortably, but nobody spoke up. Graham's smile widened, and he leaned in, voice dripping with amusement. She's just a maid, he said. Don't worry, everyone. She'll clean her way out. Nia looked up slowly. Her eyes met Graham's, and she did something that startled even herself. She smiled. Not a sweet smile. A calm, knowing one. Graham blinked as if the reaction didn't fit the script in his head. Nia turned back to Ethan and spoke softly. Ask him who installed the network tap, she said. Ethan swallowed. What? Nia nodded slightly toward the wall outlet. Ask. Ethan's hands trembled. He looked at Graham, then at the lawyers, then at the CEO of Meridian Crown, Amina Kessler, who sat at the head of the table, watching everything with quiet suspicion. Ethan opened his mouth. Graham's eyes narrowed. Ethan. Ethan's voice came out rough. Who installed the device in the network panel? Silence. Graham laughed once, but it sounded forced. What device? Ethan's voice steadied, just slightly. The tap. It's not standard equipment. Victor's smile flickered. Amina's eyes sharpened. What is he talking about? Graham raised his palms. This is ridiculous. There's no tap. Nia stepped forward, lifted her phone, and showed the photo to Amina. Amina's face changed instantly. Not anger. Recognition. The look of a leader realizing the building had been compromised under her own roof. Amina's voice turned cold. Who authorized this? Graham's smile froze. I have no idea what. Nia's voice stayed calm. He did. Graham's eyes flashed. Excuse me. Nia didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. I heard you, she said. In the break room. You said vendor verification was theater. You said the auditors were handled. You said the person asking questions would be blamed. A few people inhaled sharply. Victor Laird's gaze turned sharp and predatory. Who are you? Graham's face reddened. She's lying. She's a cleaner. She doesn't even belong in this meeting. Nia kept her eyes on Amina. Do you want the deal signed under surveillance you didn't authorize? Amina's jaw tightened. No. Graham laughed again, louder this time, trying to reclaim control. This is insane, he said. You're going to let a maid derail months of negotiation. Then he turned to Nia and said the line that destroyed him. You're just a maid. Nia looked at him calmly. Then she shifted her gaze to the wall-mounted conference phone near Amina's seat. Amina followed Nia's eyes. The phone lit up. A call incoming. The caller ID displayed. Independent Audit Council. Amina's face went still. She picked up. Speak, Amina said. A voice filled the room, clear and professional. Ms. Kessler, this is Counsel Adeyemi. We have credible evidence of fraud connected to Northbridge Systems and internal interference in your diligence process. We are requesting an immediate hold on any signing, pending review. Graham's face drained of color. Victor's smile vanished. Amina didn't blink. On what basis? Counsel Adeyemi answered smoothly. Shell vendor invoices, revenue inflation signals, and confirmation from a witness inside the building that the process is being rushed and monitored unlawfully. Amina's eyes moved to Nia. Nia stood still, hands by her sides, like she was simply waiting for the floor to dry. Amina's voice turned hard. Are you telling me my signing room is compromised? Yes, Adeyemi said. And if you sign now, you expose Meridian Crown to regulatory risk. Amina looked at the contract folder. Then she did the simplest thing with the loudest impact. She closed it. The sound of the folder shutting echoed like a gavel. Graham's mouth opened. Amina. Amina held up a hand. No. Victor leaned forward, voice controlled. Ms. Kessler, we've come too far. This is a misunderstanding. Your facility staff is mistaken. Amina's eyes narrowed. Facility staff. Then she turned to Nia. Who are you? Nia's pulse thumped, but her voice stayed steady. Nia Hart, she said. Independent risk investigator. A wave of murmurs spread through the room. Graham's laugh came out sharp and ugly. That's not true. Nia looked at Amina. I was assigned to verify your diligence process after you received anonymous warnings. Amina's face tightened. Warnings from who? Nia's eyes flicked to Graham. The people benefiting from this deal being rushed. Graham's jaw clenched. He turned to the room, trying to reframe the narrative. This is sabotage, he said. This is someone trying to embarrass us. Amina's gaze was ice. No, this is someone stopping us from signing blind. Graham's voice rose. She's making it up. Amina reached for her laptop, typed quickly, and brought up a secure internal link. Her fingers moved fast, like she had been holding suspicion for days, and finally had permission to act. She looked up at the room. Everyone, Amina said, voice calm and deadly. We are not signing today. Victor Laird's face hardened. If you walk away, you lose the deal. Amina nodded. If I sign, I lose the company. Then she turned to her counsel. Cancel it. The counsel in the room blinked. Immediately. Amina didn't hesitate. Immediately. Graham stepped forward, anger flashing. You can't just. Amina snapped. I can. I'm the CEO. She signed one document, not the partnership. The cancellation order. Amina pushed it across the table. The counsel took it with hands that trembled slightly. Victor Laird stood up abruptly, chair scraping the floor. This is a mistake. Amina looked him in the eye. If you're clean, you'll survive an audit. Victor's smile returned, but it was empty. We'll remember this. Amina's voice didn't shake. Good. Graham stared at Nia with a mix of rage and disbelief. You did this, he hissed, low enough for only her to hear. Nia met his eyes. You did this, she corrected softly. I just turned the light on. Graham's face tightened. Then he tried one last move. He stepped toward Nia and raised his voice, theatrical, hoping shame would save him. You're a cleaner, he said to the room, pointing like he was exposing a fraud. You're not even qualified to speak here. Nia didn't argue. She simply reached into her pocket and placed a small ID wallet on the table in front of Amina. Amina opened it, read it, and her eyebrows lifted. Then Amina looked at the room and said quietly, She's more qualified than any of you. The silence after that was heavy, because once the room realized Nia wasn't powerless, everyone had to face the truth. They had laughed with Graham because they thought he was safe to laugh with. Now they weren't sure. The meeting ended in chaos. Lawyers whispered urgently. Assistants rushed out. Phones came out like shields. Victor Laird left first, jaw tight, eyes cold. Graham tried to follow, but Amina's voice stopped him. Graham, she said. He froze. Amina didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Security, she said. Please escort Mr. Voss to HR. His access is suspended pending investigation. Graham's head snapped. You can't be serious. Amina's gaze didn't move. I am. Graham's voice broke into anger. Because of her? Because of a... He stopped himself mid-sentence, realizing the room was watching him differently now. Amina leaned slightly forward. Because of your behavior, your pressure tactics, and your connection to unauthorized surveillance. And because you forgot something important today. Graham swallowed. What? Amina's eyes were cold. In this building, the people you call just staff hear everything. Graham's face went pale. 2 security officers entered the room. They weren't rough. They didn't need to be. They simply stood beside Graham, waiting. Graham looked around the table for allies. He found none, because people love power, until power became dangerous to stand near. Graham walked out, his shoulders stiff, his face tight like he was swallowing humiliation in big pieces. Nia stood quietly near the wall. The room emptied until only Amina and Nia remained. Amina exhaled slowly. You knew. Nia nodded. I suspected. Then I confirmed. Amina stared at the city through the glass, eyes hard. How close were we to disaster? Nia answered honestly. Minutes. Amina's jaw tightened. And if you hadn't been here? Nia didn't soften the truth. You would have signed, and they would have moved the funds fast. By the time you noticed, it would be framed as your decision and market risk. Amina's shoulders sagged slightly, not from weakness, but from the weight of how close it had been. Then she looked at Nia and asked the quiet question that mattered most. Why did you let him call you that? She asked. Why didn't you speak up sooner? Nia's voice stayed calm. Because people reveal more when they think you're beneath them. Amina stared, then nodded slowly, like the sentence was sinking into her bones. Nia took a breath. But it's not over. Amina's eyes sharpened. I know. Nia glanced toward the hallway. If Graham was comfortable saying auditors are handled, then the network is bigger than him. Amina's mouth tightened. Meaning? Nia met her gaze. Meaning he's not the only one. Amina nodded, and for the first time that day, she looked genuinely afraid. Then Amina straightened, control returning. What do you need from me? Nia answered without hesitation. Authority, full access, and protection for Ethan. Amina blinked. Ethan. Nia nodded. The finance analyst. He asked the question. He'll be targeted. Amina's face hardened. He won't be. She picked up her phone and sent a message immediately. Then she looked at Nia again. And you? Nia's lips pressed together. I'll be fine. Amina shook her head. No, you won't. Not if you just canceled someone's money machine. Nia didn't argue, because she already knew. As Nia walked out of the boardroom, she passed the same hallway where she had pushed her cart earlier. The building was louder now. Phones ringing. Footsteps fast. Voices sharp. Truth did that. It made quiet rooms noisy. She reached the service corridor, took off her gloves, and stared at her reflection in the polished metal of the elevator door. For a moment, she looked exactly like what Graham had seen. A cleaner. Then her phone buzzed. A new message. Unknown number. One line. You cost us. Now you pay. Nia's stomach tightened, but her face stayed calm. Because fear was expected. But panic was optional. She put her phone away, squared her shoulders, and walked toward the elevators. The contract was canceled. The deal was dead. But the real fight had just started. And somewhere in the building, Graham Voss was finally learning the lesson he should have known from the beginning. When you treat people like they don't matter, you create enemies you don't see coming. And the ones you don't see are the ones who end you. If you were in that boardroom and you heard him call her just a maid, would you have laughed to stay safe? Or would you have spoken up even if it cost you something?